Okay, so have you ever had a time, been in sort of a weird like predicament at work, in the work environment, whatever job that was for you, where you felt like you just wanted to tell your boss in the most professional way possible to kiss where the sun don't shine and then hand in your walking papers and walk on? You know what I mean? Have you ever had a time like that? Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Welcome back to my Corporate Chronicles. This is where I am peeling back the layers, honey. I'm going deep into some stories. I have worked in the corporate environment for over 30 years, okay, in corporate America. And I want to just sort of talk about the kinds of things that go on, some of the unreal stories that don't seem real, because over the tenure of my 30-year career, I have worked in a variety of settings in healthcare in a variety of roles. And so I can't let these good stories go to waste, okay? But there's a lesson to be learned in each one of these. And so that's what I want you to walk away with, really, is the key takeaway. But some of these messages are just too good, or these stories are just too good to pass by and not share. And so today I'm going to be talking about that very thing, where I actually had a position that I'll speak to today. And really, this whole series, this episode is all about or these episodes, my Corporate Chronicles, is really about me talking through all of these different challenging scenarios and situations and providing solutions to, like not only what goes down in the confines of corporate America as a whole, but what's really going on in the boardrooms, what's going on in these leadership roles, right? What's going on, yes, in the confines of corporate America, these so-called proverbial glass ceilings and these high-rise buildings. And so let's talk about it. I want to get into it right now, okay? So I took on a position, girl, I can't even tell you what time of year. Like, I want to say it had to have been early 2000. I want to say somewhere between 2002, 2003-ish maybe. It's one of those jobs you just don't put on your resume. Like you stayed a little while and you bounce real quick. You were like, deuces, I'm out of here, because there was so much going on in this environment that was just wrong, okay? All the way wrong. And I should have known all the red flags. But you need a job, you need to work, you need the money, you need the benefits and all of these things. And so you stay despite the red flags that kind of were raised, but they were subtle and you weren't so sure, or it seemed like it was going to be a good fit for you. And then you started to see things unravel quite quickly as you were actually in there. Because truth be told, when you first get hired, you don't necessarily you don't see the truth until you're on the inside, right? Things look very different from the outside looking in, but then all of a sudden you get in there and you're like, this ain't what I signed up for. This is too much going on in here that shouldn't be going on. So I had taken on a role as an office manager for a small doctor's office. It was a husband and wife couple. The husband was the MD. It was an internal medicine office. And then the wife was an NP, a nurse practitioner. And so they were looking for an office manager. And I had a choice between this particular role and one that was about 30 miles away doing something entirely different that wasn't in leadership. And so I said, well, this is an easy. The other job actually paid a little more, but I thought to myself, but by the time I got to get up early enough, I got to drive on the freeway and hit the traffic. I got to get up early enough and get, all the things, time, gas, money. So I thought for a little bit of money, by the time I make that money, it's going to go into gas. It's going to go into wear and tear on my car. I'm going to have, you know what I mean? So I took on this role that paid a little bit less, not by much, but it was not far. I didn't have to get on the freeway. It was in a leadership role. It was perfect. It was going to be a position that allowed me to be like the Jill of all trades. But I like that. I like environments that keep me challenged, and I get bored very easily if it's not like a stimulating environment that keeps me challenged. I welcome challenges. And so I took on this position. I said, okay, great. This is perfect timing. At the time, my son, he was, I think in middle school, I want to say, headed to junior high, maybe. They call it middle school now, junior high, same thing for us in my era growing up. And so I took on this role and I thought this is going to be the best thing ever. So I get into this environment and I'm learning all that I need to. I came in with a lot of experience, which obviously is why I was hired. And so I get in here, and it starts off with, okay, I was hired to do front office and back office work. So that was perfect for me as a nurse, right? So not only am I an office manager and I get to do all of the administrative duties, but I also get to interact with patients and the staff, and keep my clinical skills strong and all of that. So I thought, wow, this is great. But here's the truth, okay? When you are a quick study, when you come in knowing a lot, when you have an when you have a very extensive resume like I do, you kind of get tested a little bit, right? So what happens is the people who hire you on is they will test you with, okay, let me just give her this much and see how she does. And then when you do that really well and you do it really quickly and efficiently, then they give you a little bit more. Let me see how she does with that. And then they keep adding on. The more you know, the more they give you. The more you can handle, the more they give you. And before you know it, you're doing all of these, like you have this long list of tasks and you're like, okay, this is not on my job description though. So it became that, right? So I'm the office manager. I have a staff I'm overseeing. It was a small staff, right? But nonetheless, there's a lot that comes with being, overseeing staff. I'm interacting with patients. I'm doing the front office stuff. I'm doing the back office stuff. I'm doing clinical rounds. I'm reporting to the doctors. And here's the thing, one thing that's true about doctors, now that I've had this experience, and nurses, okay, unless you have a business background, they are not good at being business owners, okay? They are not even good at the oversight of staff in their office. They need to stay in their lane and just do the clinical stuff, the bedside stuff, okay? But I digress. So they use me to, to do all of these different things. And so I get in here. It was just like the craziest environment, one of the craziest environments I've ever been in. And things started off kind of slow and, and I was praised about a great job I was doing. But there was another person there who was doing the billing and who was close to this individual, the nurse practitioner. And she was reporting back to her. I did not know this initially, but I found out eventually that she was reporting to her how I was doing. In other words, she was keeping an eye on me in the absence of the nurse practitioner, right, who hired me. But she was reporting lies to her because the truth is, I found this out later, that she really wanted the position. So she was telling just things that they simply weren't true about what I was doing or not doing. So anyhow, so I'm doing my job, working with the staff. This was a great group of people, by the way, that was my subordinates that reported to me. Okay. Very loyal, hardworking, fun, sense of humor. They love me and my approach and my leadership style. They just absolutely, it turned out to be a really great thing we had going on. They were dependable, all of that. They showed up all the time. They didn't, they weren't disrespectful, none of those things. I didn't have those kinds of challenges with this group. The challenge lied with the doctor and the nurse practitioner. So I don't know what was going on. I know it can be hard running a business together and being married together. So you're in the same household, you're running the business, and you've got all these issues maybe behind closed doors that nobody knows about. But whatever your issues are, whatever stress you're going through, whatever the deal is, you cannot just come to work and take that out on everybody, okay? Nobody deserves that. So that's what was going on. They were coming in on a day-to-day basis, not so much the husband. He kind of had more of a chill, cool, calm, collective demeanor for the most part. He could be a hothead sometimes, but for the most part. She, though, was quick-tempered. She would go off on the staff. She didn't care if patients could hear her. She didn't care how she talked down to them and demeaned them. And, she didn't care if she picked apart all of these minuscule things that didn't matter. And I finally had to say, whoa, hold up, wait a minute. I'm not here for this, okay? Now, mind you, I come from a background of being bullied. And by now, honey, I not only found my voice, but I was strong. My voice was strong, okay? So I pulled her to the side and I kindly said, politely, listen, I don't know what you're going through. I can only imagine the kind of stress you're under right now, but you hired me for a reason. I'm here now. Allow me to be the one. If you have issues, come talk to me about what those issues are, and I will communicate that to the staff. There is a way to communicate. You need to be gentle but firm. And if you want their buy-in, you need to allow them to be some part of the decision-making process. And by that, I mean they don't get to make the decisions, but they at least get to know what's going on, why the changes, what they could be doing better, all these things. So I'm teaching her how to be a better leader, because she was not that, okay? But I said, well, because this is not your lane, this is not your personality, you hired me for a reason, just come to me about whatever the problems are, and I will go to the staff. Allow me to be the middle person to intervene, okay? Because what you're doing right now is, not acceptable. And I mean, literally, this lady was having a whole, and I'm just gonna call it what it is, a whole white girl meltdown, okay? Just acting up, unhinged, completely unprofessional, inappropriate behavior, like just doing the most. So she said, okay, but handle it, because if you don't, I will. And she said it with a threatening tone. Now, I don't know what had transpired. Clearly something, because her whole attitude changed towards me. So clearly this billing person was telling her things that, again, I later found out that just wasn't true. So I'm going to speed up the story here, but it got to a point where it was just ridiculous, okay? And I was like, oh, no. We not doing that. We're not. So I had done a survey with my staff, and I said, look, this is going to be anonymous because I don't want you to feel like there's going to be repercussions. There's not going to be any consequences for you telling the truth. I will make sure that you're not going to be retaliated against. Don't worry about, you don't have to put your name. You don't even have to write it in your handwriting. You can literally type it, whatever you need to do. But I want to know, I asked a series of questions. I did an anonymous survey. I asked them to give it to me directly. And when I read over, some of the things that were being said that weren't in my presence, some of the ways they were feeling, I was like, okay, I've got to do something about this, because I know firsthand what it feels like to be bullied, but I'm not going to allow this person to be bullying all of these people who are good to her, who are showing up, who are great, doing a great job for the patients. They're loyal, all of the things that I said earlier. So, but this behavior just continued. So I was like, you know what? I have had enough. I'm not going to put up with this bull crap, okay? I'm going to let her know that this is not the job for me. So I started looking for work elsewhere, because I just could not deal with her attitude. I couldn't deal with just the way she rolled. You know what I mean? It just was not cool. So, but in between time, she said, okay, so since I pulled her aside and approached her, she had a problem with that. And again, whatever was the information that was provided to her by the other person. So she started making demands on me that was unreasonable. Like, for example, come in as early as 6 a.m, stay as late as 8 p.m. at night. I need you to run to the store and get dishwashing liquid. I need you to run this errand for me. I need you to do this and do that. I want you to do my books and do this and Sweetie, you clearly don't know me. But you're going, in the words of Kevin Hart, you're going to learn today, okay? Because I'm not the one to be played with. I am not the one. So now I didn't want to make a big scene in front of the staff. I didn't want to do all that. So I was trying to have these conversations offline, so to speak, like, with just the two of us when the staff would go home, after hours, early in the morning, in an office, in a meeting in the corner, where her office was in the corner. It just was so bad. I can't, you guys, the level of intenseness, when you walk in, like, it was so, you could cut it with a knife. It was so thick. Everybody was on edge. People were afraid to move, and they were doing the wrong things. They were coming, is my job on the line? Like, what should I do? I don't know what to do. I'm trying to do everything to make her satisfied. I was like, you know what? I've had enough. Now, in the last episode of my Corporate Chronicles, if you didn't watch that, go back and catch that. But I talked about building relationships and the importance of building relationships, right? So I'm not only looking for work, but I have a whole network of resources. So I've built up relationships by now. And I know people I can call that I can trust to tell me, over here they're hiring, they need somebody over here to do this, do that. And so while I was doing that, I was also still building relationships with people that this person the nurse practitioner that she introduced me to. And because I had it in so good with them, they were sharing things already early on around the time I was doing the survey with my staff, all kinds of things that they were doing wrong. Like the payroll person was telling me some things that they were doing that was shysty that they had talked to them about and said they were going to get in trouble about, that had to do with labor laws, not paying the staff overtime, just outlandish, crazy, outrageous things. Okay. Then I had people telling me, some of the pharmaceutical reps were telling me, I'm getting a kickback from this, or they're getting a kickback from doing these things, and we have a deal, and da 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 da. All of these illegal things. On top of, she's got a nasty attitude. So I was like, okay, before I get out of here, I don't want to leave the staff behind with this crazy person. I mean, she was off the charts, like unhinged for real. So I was looking through, I had access to the books, I had access to certain files, I had access to her office, I had access to all kinds of things when we were good with each other. She was not suspecting anything about, me kind of rummaging through and trying to find what I can find to advocate for these individuals before I rolled out. That's how I do, okay? I'm going to advocate for them and leave them in better hands to make sure when I leave that they're not going to continue to be bullied, because they didn't know what to do. And that's oftentimes the truth. People are put in these positions and they're like, I need to feed my family. I need to keep a roof over my head. I need to keep food in my fridge. I need a job. And I don't want to, even though they can look elsewhere, the grass ain't always greener on the other side. So they love their work. They just didn't love the environment. So I was like, okay, between the surveys and the information I was provided by the various partnerships that they had created, pharmaceutical companies or staff and payroll people and all these other individuals, even other doctors from various clinics and hospitals, like they were telling me some crazy mess. So one day, I think they were gone for her and her husband, the NP and her husband were gone, I want to say a couple days, maybe a week. They had taken vacation. I took that as an opportunity to come in there and clean house. I gathered all of the information, the surveys, the books, the information from the payroll stuff, the emails that she was sending, just different things. All of the supporting documentation, right? I told you how important that is. And I went into her office actually looking for a particular thing. I can't recall what it was now, but it was something important that I needed. And I was going to take this just to keep, for my own record. But like I said, to also have something to back me up, because I was making a plan to, help these individuals that I was going to be leaving behind. And when I went into her office, okay, they had separate offices, went into her office, and on her desk, I was looking for something in the mail. And I happened to see a letter that she had written to me to terminate me, to fire me. I had no idea this is what she was prepared to hand me. And it was dated in the future, like when she came back, this is what she decided. And when I read through that letter, girl, let me tell you, I was like, what? That sent me over the edge. So now I'm really working quickly to gather all the information I need. And so another thing, and I want you to hear me and hear me clearly, listen closely, okay? One of the things that I had that worked in my favor, aside from all the other documentation, was their employee handbook. Everything that was in that handbook, they were not following. I pulled all of the policies. I went through that handbook with a fine-tooth comb. I looked at everything, all of the supporting documentation. I pulled time cards from my staff. I saw how much she was overworking them, how she was underpaying them, promises she had made, contracts she had made them sign, partnerships she had with pharmaceutical, all of these things this couple were doing. And so when she came back, I had cleaned up my area. I had taken everything out of there that would personally belong to me. I took my, back then you would have like a file, what do you call it? A drive, you know, the little tiny USB drives. I stuck in there. I got all the information off of it that I needed. I wiped everything clean from the computer. I wrote her a nice little note, okay? And I let her have it from A to Z. And when she got back, she didn't present me right away with that letter that she had ready to terminate me. But I told her, hey, I have something that I wanted to give you. And she thought it was a little love letter. And she was just like over the moon excited about it. Oh, thank you. I can't wait to read it, and da 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 da. So I gave it to her early enough, but she didn't read it right away. So by now we have patients coming in. The staff is there. Everybody's getting ready for fully, you know, this was a clinic that was very busy. So sometimes it was standing room only. So we got to move people in and out very quickly. My office was behind the staff, the front office staff. So I can see out the window there, but they couldn't, can't remember. I think they could see inside and wave me down if they needed to. But there was like a little tent there to offer some privacy and that sort of thing. So on this day, I was sitting there all pretty, prim and proper, prissy, polite, professional, and I couldn't wait for her to read that letter. And girl, it probably was about 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 pages. Might have been 10. I don't know. I went off. Okay. I knew when she had read it, because when she got in there, like I said, she was all nice and excited and all of this, coming back from her relaxed vacation. And when she read that letter, she was like, I can't believe, she was going off. Patients could hear her. People were scared, like, what is she okay? She marched in there so fast. She wanted to tell me where I could go. She told me to get out. She demanded I leave. And I was like, not until you pay me my final paycheck. And when you do, I will kindly leave. And until you do, I'll be sitting here, even if it takes till the end of the business day. And I proceeded to sit there and do whatever I did. I went around and checked on the staff. So she was so pissed off. She was livid. She was red, beet red in the face. She went and got her husband. He read the letter. She told him what was going on. He demanded I leave. And if I don't leave, he's going to call the cops. I said, good idea. In fact, because he was getting, he was getting close, like he was getting ready to put hands on, honey. Boo-boo. Sweetie, this gonna be your last, first and final warning, okay? Now, I'm not here to get into a back and forth argument with you. Both of you know what you've been doing is wrong. I've given you every opportunity to right your wrongs, and since you decided not to, this is the action I've taken. In fact, if you don't get out of my face, if you even put a finger on me, if I feel your breath too close, I promise you, not only are you going to need to call the police, you are going to need to call the ambulance. Okay? So, in fact, I think I might want to go ahead and call the cops. I'll dial the number because I want this to be officially recorded. All the things that you have done is going to be in a report. Let's go ahead and call the cops. Let's do that. They didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know how to take. They were just like, I said, in the meantime, though, you've got patients waiting. I no longer work here. So, but I have reason to be here because you have not paid me my check. And she said, over my dead body. We're not paying you ish. You need to get out or else. So I said, well, I've given you the opportunity And she was like, I can't believe you said these things. I can't believe you put this in writing. And I said, well, there is a first time for everything. So I guess for you, this would be a first. Perhaps you've learned a lesson, but more than likely, knowing you, you haven't. So that just sent her over the rooftop, honey. She might as well have thrown herself off the edge, okay? So I finally, went around. I gave everyone, all my staff, hugs. I went around to some of the patients who were regulars and said my goodbyes to them and all of that. And then I peacefully left with all of the things that I had documented. Now, I am HR trained and certified. I have a legal background as a legal nurse consultant. I know employment, labor laws, because that's my specialty area, employment law. I knew, like the back of my hand, labor laws. I knew that I was going to have to go to the labor board, to the commissioner's office. And I took all of that information. I said, now look, I even gave them one more chance and said, look, I will leave peacefully. And you won't ever have to think twice about me. I won't ever be back. You don't have to worry about me causing any trouble. If you give me my last little measly check, it wasn't even that much, but it was wages that I earned. You by right cannot withhold my earnings just because you're pissed off. That is against the law. And if you don't, you are forcing me to take the next best course of action. And that is going to include, a law, not necessarily a lawsuit, but definitely a legal claim. So she refused, they refused. And I said, okay, fine. That's it. I'm not begging you for the check, but you'll regret it. And so they did. So it ended up turning into a lawsuit, and they were told in the mediation we settled out of court, and the mediator told them straight up, she knows her stuff. She's done her homework. She has all of the evidence right here. And she literally used your handbook against you because you all are not following any of these policies or anything that's in this handbook. And if she wanted to, she can actually create a class action lawsuit, and she would be well within her rights. I strongly advise that you settle for the amount that she is now asking for, to include all of the penalties, the suffering, the damages, all the distress that you put her through before she actually goes through the next level of this lawsuit. And so they had no choice but to pay me. And so I want you to get out of this lesson that not only are relationships important in documentation, but the first thing that your employer has you sign when you come on board is the employee handbook. Always be familiar with that. Read through it thoroughly. Make sure you know your rights. Make sure you read through the policies. And if at all possible, don't ever sign an arbitration agreement. Okay? Make sure that you know your rights and at least know what you are signing when you sign the employment handbook, and what your employer by right is supposed to be doing, and that they're adhering to those things, to that information that is placed within the handbook as much as they are the policies. If they adopt, because their policies are mostly based off the law, that's not something that they can off the cuff necessarily make up. But the ones that they do, just make sure that you understand it, because that's going to be what you need if ever you get into a predicament like I was in. May have not been that extreme, right, for you, or very well may be. But regardless of whatever your situation is, always know and always use to your advantage the employee handbook and the policies, okay? Because that's your leg to stand on. So let me know in the comments if you've been through anything crazy like this before. I would love to hear your stories, okay? Share with me what you got out of this, what your biggest takeaway was. There are so many lessons to be learned, right, in these crazy corporate positions, in our long corporate careers that we have had. And so I look forward to sharing more with you. But make sure, I know that YouTube is recommending the next best video, so be sure to tune in and watch that next, okay? Otherwise, meet me here again next week, same time, same place, for more of my crazy corporate chronicles, all right? But I'm gonna tune out while you tune in. As always, and until next time, I am wholeheartedly in this journey with you. Bye for now.